Well, two families are seeking compensation after two boys drowned in a quarry near Mamelodi in Pretoria. That happened earlier this month. Let's find out more about this now. We speak to the attorney on the case. That's Wendel Bloem. Wendel, very good morning, and thanks so much for your time. So how do you actually go about seeking compensation for families in a case like this? Undoubtedly just so tragic, so painful for them as well. But where do you begin to decide how to approach this and how much to ask for a child's life?
Good morning, Rebecca, and good morning to the listeners, and thank you for this opportunity. We've met with the families for the first time yesterday, and we indicated to them that there are various stages that we are going to approach this matter with. The first is reconnaissance and investigation to establish exactly what happened in this instance, what were the circumstances, who are the parties involved, and when I say parties, I refer to whether it is the city of Tshwane, whether it is the Gauteng provincial government, or whether it is the private contractor, or a combination of all three. Once we've made that establishment as to exactly how this quarry came about, the circumstances of the event, as well as why it is that this quarry was unprotected within a residential area, then we are in a position to decide whether we are going to talk to any or all three of these entities to try and establish what their position is on the matter. If it is a position that is one that is acceptable to the families, then it is something that we will definitely discuss with the families. If it is obviously something that is not acceptable to the families, then it is something that we have to consider our legal options on, which includes legal action. But back to one of the pertinent questions that you raised, how much does one place on the life of someone? It's a very difficult question to answer. It is one that one considers the financial circumstances of the family. Circumstances of people differ from family to family, and we take into consideration of various factors to be able to see what exactly it is that we can consider as fair compensation, as well as for the families, as well as what do we do about the parties that caused this incident or that created this environment that is so dangerous for children, knowing full well that there are children in the area, and whether there is criminal liability in this instance.
I mean, just clarify for us, Wendel, then, who is most likely to be held responsible? Who would you look at when you speak of the entities and who you're speaking to? Would it be those, for example, if it was a construction company that was working there, would it be the city? Where exactly do you start to look, or who do you look at?
We look at all three. We look at all three, Becca. We look at the city, we look at their duties and their responsibilities. With regards to that specific area, we look at the Gauteng Provincial Council, their duties and their responsibilities, and we, of course, look at the construction company that was in charge of this area and their relationship vis-a-vis the city as well as the province, to be able to establish exactly who is liable here. And as I said to you, we've only started yesterday, and we are going to look at all three. We've already received communication from the province itself with regards to an independent investigation that was launched on through the Gauteng province, and after this call, I'm going to respond to that email because they are seeking to have a meeting tomorrow with the families, and we are prepared to attend these meetings. We understand from the terms of reference that that from the 8th of March, the independent investigator has 12 weeks, which is up to the 8th of June, to be able to produce a report of his findings into this incident, and we are prepared to work with the independent investigator itself to establish exactly what it is that they find has happened in this instance. But we are looking at all three, and we are looking at the liability of everyone involved here.
Well, we understand that that independent investigation was launched by Transport MEC Jacob Mamabolo. Would you wait for that, the outcome? Like you say, you will be part of that report back on that investigation and then decide whether you would launch your own investigation, or would you do that anyway? Would you probe this on your own anyway?
We've indicated yesterday already that we will run our processes parallel to what the department is doing. So we are not going to be reactive to this this situation, which is quite ironic because a lot of these incidents happen because of a reactive response. And one of the things that we want to address in this country is the reactive nature. We wait for these things to happen, and then there's all manner of investigations and inquiries into what exactly happened. But we need to be proactive in our investigations, which we are going to be. And by the same token, we are also looking at being more proactive with other areas in the country like this that present a danger to children. Because we can't be having a situation where we always sit and have these interviews, Rebecca, about children that have passed on because of these incidents. It's time for us to start doing something so that we can prevent these things.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had quite a few. We had one in the Western Cape as well a couple of weeks ago as well. So, and over the years, we've heard of so many of them, Wendel as well. So, you say you've been with the family, you met with the families, you've met with them for the first time yesterday. How are they holding up? Especially, and I'm sure there's been some criticism out there to say, yes, of course, you can hold this person responsible, you can hold the construction company, you can hold the city responsible as well. But where were you when your child was, going out there and potentially facing this kind of danger? And I'm sure that, there've been sort of comments like that made as well. How are they holding up in the face of all of that?
It's, I cannot even, I have a son of my own, and I can't, of the same age group, and I cannot imagine losing my child and how I would feel in those instances. And speaking to the families yesterday, it was heart-wrenching speaking to them, and they are holding up because they have to. But they are severely torn apart, severely torn up about this. And you are correct, there will always be all sorts of comments, positive and negative, with regards to this. And we've been told that there have already been these comments within the community as to where were you at the time of the incident? It's a 4-year-old and it's a 7-year-old. Yes, we understand all of that, but at the moment we are now dealing with the grief of the families. We have to be sensitive to that, as well as seeking the best way for them to find closure within the legal framework.
And then it's one thing to get compensation and get justice for these children, Wendel, but one would imagine this would have to lead to other things like long-term solutions, safety for the community at large. So this is obviously just the first step to protecting our community, protecting our children in these communities as well. And if you're able to tell me at this stage, what else will you be asking for in terms of the bigger picture, not just compensation for these families?
Indeed, Rebecca, that is one of the key things we want to address here, is that we cannot be having these kind of interviews reactive to a situation. We need to identify areas of danger within this country. We need to speak to national government. We need to speak to, we are going to speak to national government, to provincial governments, and to cities and municipalities to identify these danger spots so that it can be insulated, so that it can be cordoned off. And the strange thing about most of these incidents, if not all of them, is that it's just areas of danger that have just been left open, and there are accidents waiting to happen. It's absolutely unacceptable. If you look at this particular quarry, how the danger of it could not have been foreseen by the parties responsible. It's just unacceptable. And there are many instances like this, many geographical areas like this within the country, that this needs to be addressed. And we need to say, people need to come forward and identify and say, look, this within my community, there is this quarry, there is this hole, there is this ditch, there is this body of water that is presenting a danger to our children, and let us address it and let us close it off, let us cordon it off. Because if we don't take a proactive response, we are going to have an interview in 3 weeks' time again with another incident somewhere in the country.
And Wendel, I asked that question because we understand that Hamid Mashaba, leader of Action SA, is the one who has hired you to represent the family, says that he is actually has offered to pay for legal services as well. And, you know, there might be some people out there saying, well, you know, this is all just politicking. It's for votes. And, you know, these are two lives and they shouldn't be used to gain votes, because this is an election year. We're expecting local government elections to happen at some point. That this is not just for the sake of that this is really a genuine concern for our children and their safety.
This is a genuine concern. This is why we took the instruction. We are talking about people's lives here, and obviously there would be a narrative of there's an element of electioneering in this, and I can't comment, nor will I comment on that. All that I know is that I'm involved in the Lily Mine disaster, and we are close towards the end of providing closure for those families. I'm involved in the Hammanskraal incident as well as this particular incident in Mamelodi. And the focus is not just to provide compensation and closure to the families, but to start addressing the very important thing that you've raised, that what are we going to do going forward with regards to these kind of danger points in our country, so that we do not have these kind of incidents where our kids swim or fall into or fall from dangerous points, and it leads to their death. This has to stop.
Yeah.